Welcome to the premium episode with today's special Guest. We met a few years ago in Warsaw, and today he's my guest. Not only on the podcast, but also at home in Czech Republic. It is an honor to welcome Luc Jacobs here. Welcome, Luc.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we are really a bit in a different setup today because Luke is working now in Kiev as an ambassador of Belgium. It's your second post already in Kiev, but do you remember actually your first time when you became a diplomat and what made you choose, let's say, this path?
Thank you, Martin, for having me. It's a real pleasure to be with you, to be at your home. Yeah, how did it all start? I think I've never been thinking a lot about a career in diplomacy, but by the end of my studies, of course, you start to think, what will I be doing? I've always wanted to do something with an international dimension. And then there was the opportunity to participate in an exam, because it is based on an exam. It is quite competitive. The time span is 9 months. It's like a pregnancy. 9 months of various tests, interviews, and all that. And okay, I decided to participate, and to my big surprise, I succeeded in that project. And I started in 1986 already. That makes
Okay, I
nearly
was 4 at
40
that time.
years. Yeah.
Was there anything
Yeah.
else actually that you could choose? Uh,
I must say, at that time in the 80s, the job market was not so favorable. And that is why I did in my studies, I did two specializations actually. I did social law and I did international law. And why social law? Because there was still quite some, for jurists, there was quite some possibility to be like employed in a company or in a trade union or in some social work and so on, where social law, labor law, and social security law and so on was important. So I was looking for, I was sort of, I had various avenues to explore, but the diplomatic one was actually the first that really opened up for me.
mhm. So you became a lawyer in
Yes,
your
I studied law.
after your
Yeah,
study.
yeah.
Okay,
No, I never practiced as a lawyer,
okay,
actually.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But you studied the law, and
I
yeah.
studied law, yeah, which is, by the way, which is a very good, gives you a very good basis to prepare for the diplomatic exam, because let's say, the subjects that you study in when studying law are exactly those that are interesting for the diplomatic career. That means not only international law, international private law, but also economy, history, the history of your own country, international history, and so on and so on. So it gave me a very good basis.
You have worked also in many different countries since then. And which one left the strongest, let's say, mark on you?
Difficult to say, and it's not that I absolutely want to give a diplomatic answer to that, but I think you see, the diplomatic career it is not easy to make a difference between your personal life and your professional life. So you really engage into that career. You engage your wife and your children, your family, into that, and then I rather tend to look at the postings in the sense of how did we live a particular posting as a family, and then as we grew as a family, as the family grew, and as we grew as a family, every posting had its special flavor to it, and made it like, how to say, like a very livable and a very enjoyable even experience. Do I have to name the various postings I was?
Yes, please. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
can do
Sure.
it
Interesting. I know you started in Dublin now. So
exactly. Yes. So we started in Dublin in 1988. Um, because as a starting diplomat, you first do a stage and an internship of 2 years in the ministry, but after 2 years, you are sent abroad. So 88 Dublin. Then we were sent to Canada, Ottawa, then to Prague, Czech Republic. Then we spent 8 years in Belgium, of which 4 years in the headquarters, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Brussels, and also 4 years in our permanent representation to the European Union, like the embassy or embassy to the European institutions. Then 4 years in Morocco, in Casablanca, then back for 3 years in Belgium. Then my first ambassadorship in Kiev. After Kiev, after 4 years in Kiev, ambassador to Poland with
where
co-accreditation
we met
to
together.
where we met
Yeah.
with co-accreditation to Lithuania.
Thanks to your post in Warsaw, we could meet.
Yeah, it's a small world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And after 4 years in Warsaw, I was posted again in Brussels. I had a job, very interesting one, of special envoy for climate and environment. And then after 2 years in that job, there was a somewhat unexpected opportunity for me to return as ambassador to Ukraine, to Kiev. I applied for that posting and I was chosen. So since August last year, actually exactly 1 year ago, I started for the second time in Kiev.
Was it actually more professional or personal decision?
I think it was both. Again, it is very difficult to make in this job to make a separation between personal life and professional life. Of course, it was a professional decision in the sense that I thought that I could serve my country well, knowing the country, having been there already and not that long ago. At the same time, it was a personal decision as well because I really wanted to go. I saw the full-scale invasion of Ukraine happen. I saw it happen from Warsaw, and in a sense, I felt frustrated not to be able
Not to do anything,
to
huh?
do more. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. So this was a golden opportunity, so to say, to go back and to yes, I feel much more, or how to say, less. Of course, I don't feel that frustration anymore. I feel that I can do something, especially after having already this 1 year in Kiev. It is a very, like, intellectually, professionally, and personally, it is very rewarding for me to be back.
Now, how is it? How is it actually being an ambassador in Ukraine during the wartime? Because you was first time there where was not the war, so now you can compare, or let's say at least you have insights and comparison with that first time, now the second time in the war. So how is it being an ambassador in the wartime in Ukraine
Yeah.
now?
Well, I must say that the first time I went to Ukraine, the country was already at war because this was in the summer
Okay.
2014. So Russia had already occupied Crimea. There was a full-scale war going on in the east of the country, in the Donbas. This was not just about separatists in the two eastern provinces of Ukraine. This was already a Russian-backed military operation, and with regular Russian troops active in the Donbas. So when I arrived in the summer, the country was at war, and also in 2014, and also then we did not know where this would end. But I understand what you mean. The scale at which the war is taking place now is, of course, of a much bigger nature. Now, I must say the work as such of a diplomat doesn't change that much in its essence in what we do.
Not even from the previous roles,
And what I
not only in Ukraine, but
Yes, because our role is about understanding a country, is about reporting on what is happening in the country, is about developing opportunities with the country in terms of our political relationship, diplomatic relationship, head of state to head of state, government to government. It is about assisting our companies that are investing and trading with the country. It's about assisting our citizens. I mean, these are the basic tasks. In a sense, they do not change, but the circumstances, of course, do change and did change dramatically when it comes to Ukraine. In 2014, 2018, my first period in Ukraine, there was a war going on, but it was very localized.
mm,
Now, since 2022, I mean, the threat is everywhere. And missiles, drones, shaheds can strike everywhere. There is no safe place in Ukraine. So it is a completely different context for Ukrainians, for the citizens, for their leadership, for their military, of course, and also for the diplomatic community living and working in
mhm.
Kiev.
What is the daily life in Kiev right now? I mean, from your perspective.
I would say that there is a sort of an abnormal normality. Ukrainians want to live their lives. I mean, in spite of the war, of course, the war is everywhere and is always present. And unfortunately, that is something that we see happen. Like a couple of days ago, there was a very heavy attack that took the heaviest tolls in terms of human life and injured people and material damage. And this is to civilian infrastructure. This is to residential quarters of the city that are being hit. So that is, I mean, there are moments that the war hits hard, literally speaking. In between those moments, you see that Kievans want to live their lives.
Mhm,
And there is like as I said, a sort of an abnormal normality about it.
mm.
But the war is there, and there is, I mean, and it can strike at any moment
Any place.
and any place. And I must also say that, of course, okay, Kiev, the capital city, is being hit as well. But of course, those cities that are much closer to the front line, that are much closer to the border with Russia, do have, of course, an awful lot more of attacks and this is hitting hard. This is of course psychologically this is a heavy burden. But also there you see that there is a remarkable resilience of the people. But it is absolutely not to be underestimated. To be under the constant threat of bombardments, drones, missile attacks, and other.
What they do actually, the civilians in Ukraine, according to you, to sustain. I mean, to continue and to sustain living their normal lives, or as you said, it's abnormal, of course.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's other way around. But sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's not good because of the missile
Yeah,
hits the,
yeah,
the city and so on. So it must be very frustrated.
yeah.
How do they sustain, according to you? What they do to sustain, actually?
Yeah. Well, it's a question I often ask them how they cope, how they do, and they say it is a matter of survival. They want to survive and they want to live their lives. They don't want to be sort of forced into submission. They don't want to be forced to adopt another model of living. They want to live their lives, and they do not have any other choice. It is that, or let's say, a complete. Or forgetting about their own identity, forgetting about their own values and so on, and they want to. This is what keeps them so resilient, so defiant as well. And for me, I must say, okay, I live this situation with them, but from as an outsider. But the way in which they live their identity, their culture, and their personal lives, their personal convictions is at the same time very inspirational for me. I could never have imagined that people can be like that.
Hmm. So that
Yeah.
inspires the most.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
what has surprised you, for example, in that case on the Ukrainians? Uh, does it somehow surprise you something over there?
Um,
Then inspired, of course,
yeah,
inspired and surprise you something
yeah. I would say, as I said, their defiance of the enemy against all odds, but they have the cards, uh, and the sheer will to do and to go it their own way. They have set their ideas on what makes a livable society, what makes a workable democracy, and and they want their personal freedoms. And of course, the more aggressive their neighbor is, the more they turn their back to that neighbor,
hmm.
or the more they are convinced that this is the choices that Russia would want to impose on them. They know these are not our free choices. We know where to go, and that is that is driving them, that is inspiring them, and that is yeah, and that explains, I think, their this resilience, a sheer way of surviving as a nation, and being able to pursue their own free choices.
Mm. How actually, because most of that attacks happens overnight or early in the morning, or you know how how is it actually during the night for you when you are in Kiev? How could you sleep, or how what do you do in case there is alarm, or there is a there are the drones, maybe you hear them, or how is it?
Um, yeah, when you ask me the question like that, and I try to, it is already as if I already adapted to this type of situation as well. It becomes like a sort of a second nature. Indeed, air alerts are, and so the attacks are most often during at night. This is also purposely done like that. This is, of course, to deprive people of their sleep. It is also for air defense. It is not so easy, or it's more difficult to hit the drones, to take them down,
To
and
defend
and
that.
and so
Mm.
on. So there are various reasons for that. Uh, I must say I'm very much influenced by the way in which I see Ukrainians around me react, often very stoically. Even already, I mean, the first. One of the first days I was invited by friends for dinner. There was air alert. We were sitting on, in the restaurant outside. Nobody moved from the terrace, and the metro station was nearby. So it was not that shelter was not nearby, but nobody really moved, and things continued. And went their normal way. So I'm in a way that what is happening now in Kiev. I mean, the attacks are maybe less frequent now. I speak about Kiev, are less frequent, but are much more, how to say, much more intense. During the first months I was in Kiev, we thought that when 80 drones were launched against Ukraine in one night, it was already a lot. Now it is 500 to 600 drones. So there is a difference of scale. There is a difference of this is also a type of technology that is being constantly improved on both sides, but also on the Russian side. There are now already jet engined drones that are very difficult to take down. Missiles
Hmm.
are difficult to take down. They come in swarms. They have decoy drones and so on. It's a lot of tactic,
Mixed of,
a
yeah.
mix, but in order to make air defense
Also to confuse the defense.
and to
I mean, it's yeah.
exactly. But the question was, what do I do? Of course, I cannot pretend that I continue my sleep. And often I go to a safe room in the apartment, which means that you have the principle of two walls and so on. I mean, that you are not near a window and all that. I think I can be lucky in the sense that I live in a quarter of the city that is less prone to attacks, that is less exposed to attacks, but I hear these drones passing over.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Must be
But
rough, yeah.
yes, you could say you learn to live with it
Hmm.
in a way.
And especially when you see the
Yeah,
Ukrainians, how they
yeah,
behave,
yeah,
or they have to behave actually, otherwise they
yeah,
can't live
yeah.
normally. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. What does your job as an ambassador looks like on a daily basis?
Hmm.
I mean, in this case,
Yeah.
what do you do in
Um,
Ukraine?
well, the basic tasks do not change, but circumstances have changed. For example, the Belgian community, when an embassy, for example, takes care of the Belgian community living in in the host country, so because of the war, there are less Belgians now living and working in Ukraine. Also, our consular affairs are being, let's say, the consular affairs are being dealt with by the embassy in Warsaw. So what I did as an ambassador in Warsaw since 22 is now being done by my successors. So a number of paperwork, also visa applications and all that. We do not have because of the war, we do not deal with that physically in Kiev, but this work is being dealt with in Warsaw by our embassy in Warsaw. So that is a part of the job that is less present in my work today. When it comes to, for example, to our assistance to the Belgian business community, we will provide information to those Belgian businesses that are interested in doing business with Ukraine, and they are still there. Less, or there is more apprehension, there is more hesitation. But those companies that know Ukraine already or that see the potential of Ukraine, that also want to be prepared for when the war ends, when peace comes, I mean, and that know that they do not have to wait until the end of the war in order to, let's say, to already put their feelers out and have the contacts and know the terrain better. We will assist them.
Mhm.
We I must say that the as I knew the business community present in Ukraine already from my first ambassadorship, to my big surprise, when after my return, I discovered that most of them, the large majority of them, are still there.
Mhm.
So I started to organize the business community again, as I used to during my first ambassadorship, and they were very happy. I mean, the companies were very happy about the fact that okay, there was a new wave of let's say
Initiative. Yeah.
of initiative of activity and a way to network among themselves, to exchange information and so on, because many of them had a hard time, especially in the first weeks and months of the invasion. So that is also a type of work that in se does not change, but you work in completely different circumstances of a war in which companies suffered damage. They have employees that are at the front. They have employees that died at the front. They take care of the families. They were very much involved also with those that wanted to be evacuated or wanted to see their employees that want to see their families evacuated and so on. I mean, there was a lot of it. It is a completely different type of work. The economic situation is, of course, also different. So also these companies work in a completely different environment, and the type of questions they ask, the ways in which we can assist them are different.
Mm.
And on the political diplomatic front, I mean, there is, yeah, the work has become much more dense and intense. I mean, there are many more ministerial visits to Ukraine. There is a lot more interaction. I mean, Ukraine is very present in all the international fora, be it United Nations, NATO, European Union, OSCE, Council of Europe. I mean, all these fora, Ukraine is still very much on the agenda. And also there, I mean, the embassy will be asked to provide information, to report on developments, to clarify certain things, to in dialogue, in contact with our Ukrainian friends. So yeah, that is the intensity of the work has changed
That's increased, huh?
drastically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is no doubt, of course, that your initiatives, with other community, Belgian community, is for sure, helping to develop the resilience of Ukraine and of the people as well, of the communities over there locally.
Mhm.
But what actually, in what ways Belgian and European Union broadly, I mean, are involved in supporting Ukraine, and are we doing enough? I mean, in that sense.
The short answer to the question is we can never do enough. But what do we do? And that is that nicely fits in with the previous question, because when there is a big difference now compared to the work I was doing during my first ambassadorship to Ukraine, is the fact that there is in terms of the cooperation and the support to Ukraine. I mean, we work at a completely different scale. I mean, there is the military support, of course, that has, I mean, uh, which reaches, as far as Belgium is concerned, which reaches €1 billion per year in terms of military support alone, and that is also the priority for Ukraine to withstand the aggression, at least that, and to be able to defend itself better, also in terms of air defense and so on. So there is this aspect, the military support, in which the embassy as such is not involved on a day-to-day basis. This is done within through the appropriate channels, also in a NATO context and all that. But there is, I mean, in terms of cooperation between Ukrainian and Belgian defense industry and so on, this is something where the embassy can sort of
Facilitate.
do
Yeah.
do facilitate and do useful work. In the civilian sector, I mean, Belgium, from the first days of this, since the first days of the invasion, has provided a lot of humanitarian support. We also contributed substantially to the work that a number of UN agencies are doing, like UNICEF, UNDP, and so the International Red Cross. I mean, we fund these organizations and UN agencies in order for them to do their very basic and valuable work in Ukraine. Of course, being part of the European Union means that Belgium is part and parcel of all the efforts that the European Union is doing, and this ranges from the macro financial, so the budgetary support to Ukraine, to all sorts of projects in civilian and humanitarian field as well, also in military and defense industry field. And specifically, as far as the bilateral cooperation is concerned, country to country, Belgium to Ukraine, we have a very interesting program, which we call it a B Relief program. BE stands for Belgium, B Relief program, which is our contribution to Ukraine's reconstruction and recovery. This is spread over the coming 4 years. It is a 150 million euro program focused on education and healthcare, an overall focus on energy security and energy efficiency. And this is also a very important tool that we have in order to make very tangible and very concrete contributions to Ukraine's recovery. The geographical focus is on 2 regions, because it's sort of a division of labor between donor countries. So Belgium is focusing its support of that kind to Kiev capital region and the Chernihiv region, which is north of Kiev, and a region bordering Russia and Belarus, and a region that suffered a lot in the first months of the invasion and actual occupation of the territory.
You worked also in a few Central and Eastern Europe countries. You said Warsaw. You was there in Czechia in the beginning, and so on. How do you see the position of this region, Central and Eastern Europe? I mean, in terms of their role in the future development, not only concerning Ukraine, but also, I mean, in the broader perspective.
Yes, indeed. When I when I look back at my career, I noticed that I spent maybe nearly half of my career in this part of Europe. Starting in the Czech Republic, actually, that was my first experience with Central Europe. And I think this experience, so having been posted to the Czech Republic, having been posted to Ukraine, having been posted to Poland, Lithuania, also having worked in Brussels with the region. I was desk officer for Central Europe, so to say, at the time when all the 10 Central European countries were candidate to become member of the European Union. So this accumulated experience and expertise gives me an interesting advantage, I think, in looking at a region from a broader perspective. And that is also the way I do. I do not look at one individual country taken on its own. I see them as part and parcel of a bigger picture. And this is also when you study a little bit the history of this part of Europe. You will see that borders have been changing and so on, but that the challenges of a particular region, but also the potential of a particular region, what makes this part of Europe interesting in terms of what is in the subsoil, in terms of its geopolitical situation, in terms of its geoeconomic situation at the crossroads of and right in the center of Europe. That gives, let's say, an interesting and a broader perspective on how to look
And how
at
do
the
you see
region.
actually? How do you see the Central and Eastern Europe at the moment? Playing the role in a more geopolitical and also economically and these future developments. Which how do you see the role of the Central and Eastern Europe at the moment?
Yeah, I see the tendency of these countries to stick more closely together. Of course, there are also sometimes the political circumstances of the day that sort of make this happen in a varying degree of intensity and so on. But when you look, for example, at the Visegrad group of countries, that is a very interesting format. It has been mirrored somewhat on the Benelux. I must say, coming from the Benelux, that our Benelux cooperation is quite a unique one, also in terms of the depth of its cooperation and also in what this type of cooperation meant for the European construction. But nevertheless, I mean, Visegrad is a very interesting format. I see the Baltic countries that we tend to see as one group. These are three individual countries, but they have a very interesting position in the north of Europe, being like the bridge between Central Europe and the Nordic countries. And there you see a lot of the types of formats, multinational or regional formats that are being created. When it comes to, for example, how the border is already crossed with Ukraine, you had this very interesting format between Poland, Lithuania, and Ukraine. Part of the former Polish-Lithuanian Grand Duchy and so on. I mean, these are various formats. You have the G8 that is also already expanding towards the Balkans. So you see that there is a growing interest in not only developing the east-west axis, but also the north-south axis
Across,
and
yeah. Mm.
north-south via the Baltic down
Mhm.
to the Adriatic. So it is like a changing mentality we have in the past century during the Cold War. We have been living in the idea and in the fiction, one could say, or a cultivated fiction of West and East, but there is much more to that. There is a common history, there is a common historical heritage, and countries start to realize there is also a common destiny. And this is gradually being worked out. And it is about political cooperation, it is about military cooperation, it is about transport corridors, uh, and all.
Business wise.
It's about, yes, it is about interregional cooperation, and so on.
Hmm. Hmm. Was there a moment during, let's say, your missions, where truly stayed with you morally or emotionally?
Can you repeat that again?
That during your missions, was there any moment that stayed with you emotionally more or morally more? I mean,
Yeah.
that you can remember or stayed with you?
Um,
Very strong moment. Was there
yeah.
anything with your mission?
Um, in general, when I look back at my career, I think the you see the most dramatic moments, or the moments also in which you you start to ask yourself moral questions, are actually now in Ukraine. When you see indeed the immorality of this war. By the way, the living so closely this situation in Ukraine and with Ukrainians makes me also reflect on the broader issue of war in and other, let's say, other wars in other parts of the world. And I realized that even as a diplomat in my profession, it is not always the way in which you look at things, or that you dig very deep into why this or that war came about, or what is going on actually, or how do we feel connected with what people go through in that particular war. So there, maybe also because there is such a flow, or an avalanche of information, that you cannot grasp everything. But living the reality of a war now makes me feel much more sensitive towards other conflicts, other armed conflicts, and other wars that happen in other parts of the world, and where I think, yes, what I live here is also the reality in other parts of the world. So how do we deal with that, not only professionally but also humanly and morally? That is indeed very important. Change in a way, in the way that I look at world politics, so to say, and it is even my job. But when you're not confronted with such a reality, you tend not to have this type of reflections.
So there, it leads me to another question. What would you say to people who think like, the war in Ukraine is not a problem?
Yes, what I w- I would say that, I mean, this is, in the first place, I mean, this is the biggest war that happened to Europe since the Second World War. So this is only happening a couple of thousand kilometers away from our homes. This war is affecting directly our security as well. This war is affecting global security. Let's not forget that in the first weeks and months after the invasion, there was a total blockage of export of grain and so on to countries that are even further away I mean, on the African continent, in Africa, in the Middle East, and so on. So all of a sudden, they were cut off from their lifeline in terms of grain exports. So it is. This is a war that cannot leave us indifferent because it is a war that is affecting us. Yeah.
Hmm. Do you think the war in Ukraine is also a test of Europe values? I mean,
Exactly. This is and that is also a reason why we should not think that it is not our war. This war is about denying a country its own sovereign and a nation its own sovereignty, its territorial integrity, as it is, as we say, its borders. This is denying a country its own free will and free choice to build itself into a workable democracy, into a mainstream democratic country, preparing for EU membership, preparing for NATO membership, for that matter. And this is about indeed our democratic values. And if we allow this type of aggression to happen in this part of the world, okay, this happens in Europe, it happens elsewhere as well, but it should already be to other Europeans, like to my competitors to Belgium, it should already be quite a different thing that this war is not happening in a faraway country. No, this war is happening in Europe. So this, I mean, this is a direct attack to everything we hold dear. I mean, we cannot organize this planet if we do not do it in the way that we have been organizing our work through United Nations and so on, through a number of very basic principles like sovereignty, like non-aggression,
which are
uh,
heavily challenged now. Yeah?
and they are very challenged, but they do not need to be challenged with the argument that is often used. Well, you see, the system doesn't work. We have to devise something completely different. No, the system is maybe not perfect, but is perfectible. But is precisely it is perfectible if we all abide by the very simple rules we have set ourselves after the Second World War. So, if this international legal order is for grabs, then this is not. I mean, this will backfire on any country on this
In the future.
planet,
Yeah.
and also, of course, on our country. So, this is not this is a war that is of direct consequence to the way in which we also will be able to, let's say, to continue our lives along the models and the democratic model that we and the international cooperation model that we have devised, and that has for so long already preserved peace in our
Mm,
continent.
mm. Little bit to switch to your personal also life. You have five children. How has your family, let's say, influenced your work, and what do they say about your at the moment your work in Ukraine?
Mhm. Yes, five children. They are all born abroad. Two in Dublin, two in Ottawa, one in the youngest daughter in Prague. Um, Again, also there, the separation between personal and family life and professional life is there is no separation. That line is not easy to be drawn, and what we or how we have developed as a family is indeed the way in which we have been moving from country to country, and that has become sort of part of the DNA
Mm.
of my family. Not always easy. The older the kids get, the more difficult it is to unroot them again and to move to another place. Um, but we did it, and we did it as a family. And I think in general there is, let's say, so to say, in the collective memory of my family, this is something that we, yeah, that is present and that we all carry, and I think that we are all proud of.
It's a
Yeah.
teamwork,
It
actually.
is it is a teamwork. It is something that we did together, that we live together, and we have these memories together. Yeah. Now, as for my job now, of course, we discussed that in the beginning. This was professionally, this was something, yes, many diplomats would aspire to. Personally, there was this personal drive for me to do it, to be able to come back. But of course, it was not a decision that I wanted to take alone. So I consulted Anne, my wife, of course. The children know about it as well. And I must say, they are all. Anne is very supports me for 200%. She knew my feelings. She shares the same feeling. She has been living with me in Kiev during our first ambassadorship as well. So she perfectly understands my decision, but I wanted to share the decision with her. I didn't want to take the decision and then say, oh, by the way, I'm going back to Kiev. That's not the way it happens. The kids, I cannot pretend that I asked permission to the kids to go, but I informed the kids, and the kids, they're grown ups. These are
Yeah,
adults, but
self-service already.
they support me. I think they are even proud of what their dad is doing, and that gives me a lot of motivation as well.
I can also confirm that whenever I talk to Anne, even you was in Warsaw or now you visit us on the way from Kiev, Anne is here with you, so she's very involved in the discussions and very informed. That is something I can confirm, and it's a proof for me. What you saying? Is there any of your kids? I mean, is there a new generation of diplomats in your family, or?
No, there is nobody that followed in my footsteps. My youngest daughter, she was interested in the diplomatic career. She also realizes that it's not easy to become a diplomat. I mean, to get through this very competitive process. But she's the only one of the five kids that studied law, and maybe also for that reason she identified more with my or the career I chose. But then in the meantime, she has a very interesting job in Belgium that makes her travel from time to time as well, and so on. So there is also an international dimension to it. So she has a boyfriend and so on, a partner. I mean, this is already becoming a serious relationship. So yeah, she settled in her career in another way, but she was the only one of the five that had thought of the idea of going the same way.
Hmm. What keeps you let's say, what keeps you strong in even difficult times when you a lot of traveling and different posts, different countries now, the post in the war. what keeps you strong to sustain and
Yeah.
to survive even in the difficult times?
Yes, I would say a belief in injustice and a lot and a fight against injustice. But the ultimate, or the belief in the fact that ultimately justice will be done, and that is something that we can influence through our work. I mean, to keep asking the attention for the fact that this war is an unjustified war. It is an unprovoked war, and that those that started this war and those that committed war crimes, I mean, from the Russian side, they will be held accountable for that. So that is for me, a strong motivating factor. The belief in justice, and indeed the belief in an international legal order, the rule of law at the international level, that we devised we designed a number of rules by which states uh, will uh, states have to abide, have to engage in a constructive cooperation, have to solve the problems, and this is the way to go. I have that strong belief, and it is a strong motivating factor, and um, and it is, yeah, it is what keeps me doing what I'm doing already during my whole career. But it is, of course, very I mean, now in Ukraine, this is very manifestly, this is the overall focus of my
Mhm.
work.
And from your personal perspective, in life there are many difficulties. Let's say appears, during your career, during your personal life, and so on. What keeps you strong in that case? What do you have any routines in the difficulties times, or?
Mhm. Well, I must say that yeah, I'm who I am. I maybe now, and also being, this is okay. I'm in Kiev. This is a non-family post. I'm there by myself. I know that I'm supported. Anne is at the home front, and indeed, as you have witnessed, she is very much committed, very much involved. But I'm there without a family, without her, without. Okay, the kids are anyhow, they have their own lives now. But so I tend to be busy with my work, or I'm more I'm looking at things more professionally than that. Now, to get my mind at ease, what I do is I go cycling. I should do some more swimming. I love swimming. There are some excellent swimming pools in Kiev. So sports would be a way for me to, let's say, to decompress, so to say. And I also have a lot of opportunity to go to various types of cultural events, because that is also very remarkable how, and that brings us back to the abnormal normality of life in Ukraine, but also because Ukrainians are threatened in their own cultural identity. That is precisely a counter-reaction, that they want to assert their identity, and they do it through all types of expressions of art, being in theater, less accessible to me because of the language problem, but theater is an absolute success story now in Ukraine. It is about literature, it's about film, it is about song, dance, the traditional music culture. There is contemporary dance, contemporary theater. There is a filmmaking. There is painting, sculpture, uh, concerts. It is such a dense artistic life to which I'm often invited, and this is also for me a way also to witness and to live with Ukrainians, their defiance and their resilience, and at the same time to learn in a record speed of time to learn a lot about Ukrainian culture.
Mm. Should
S-
be also for them, huh? Very, very strong attitudes to survive.
yeah, yeah, that
I
is,
mean,
yeah.
you know.
That are exactly the words they use. They say this is about our survival. Yeah. So this is the way they behave. This is the way they act as a community, as a society, and feel I privileged that I can live that with them and that I can participate in that.
Hmm. If you have to name, let's say, the one thing that matters in life, what would that be? Or
I would say without any doubt, and also what I see around me in Ukraine, where indeed these questions are asked more pressingly, because exactly that is the question they ask themselves, because life can end from one day to the other. I mean, that is a reality that is much more present, unfortunately, in Ukraine. It's the family, it's basic things as recently as I think 2 days ago, I met with some internally displaced people, so in the west of Ukraine, so that were forced out of their homes by the war. They came from the east, and also a mother with two small kids and a third on the way. She also said, "Well, we have seen a lot of horrors. We with the children also, we have gone through a nightmare, but are we lucky that we are still sound and safe and that we have ourselves and that we have our families?" So this is that also teaches me that I have I should not attach too much attention to material issues or materialistic questions, but rather enjoy the fact that we are safe and sound, that you have your family and so on. I think yes,
hmm, hmm.
that would be my answer
Yeah.
to that question.
How can, according to you, how can ordinary people in Europe, let's say, be part of something meaningful, even they are not in politics?
I think by keeping a very critical mind on what is happening. I mean, for example, I can now very much compare a very complex situation like the one I live in Kiev with the simplicity or the simplistic ways sometimes in which these complex issues are being summarized in a couple of sound bites during the daily news. So that is, so I would say keep yourself informed, to take the effort to dig a little bit deeper in what you hear, in what you read, double check facts and so on. I think that's absolutely
Hmm.
important.
What values or lessons would you pass to the younger generation? For example, those who want to make, a difference in the future.
Not to take anything for granted. I would certainly, accord any, to young people, also the time of their lives, that they can be, that they do not have to worry about all the problems in the world, but at the same time, that they realize that they should not take for granted that they can live in peace, that they can exactly do what they want to do, that they have the freedom to make their choices, that they live in a society, in a political system that is organized in a fairly decent way, and if it would sort of go the wrong way, that we have strong institutions, that there is a good check and balances that can settle things and that can keep the things in the right direction. So when they get also to the age that they become politically active, or already that they are asked to vote, that they do not take anything for granted, and that they really reflect on, or that they would not act and react in a superficial way, but that they would dig a little deeper also in what they see happen around them,
And be involved, or
and to be involved. Another lesson I learned from being back in Ukraine. It is remarkable to see how society is organized, how civil society is organized, be it in a formal way through organizations or in an informal way. This mobilization of people, when we have seen that a couple of, or last week, when they came, they went to the streets again to demonstrate against a particular law that was, and that was sort of reducing the independence of anti-corruption institutions and so on.
and it was quite influenced, on that. So
Yeah,
they did it,
yeah,
huh? I mean,
exactly. So when you see the drive that the population has, the way in which they fight for their rights, they come up for their rights, they stand up for that type of causes. That is something I think we can learn from. Yeah, and we should learn from the civic action how important this is, and not to be indifferent to certain evolutions you see happen and that go in the wrong way. Then you have to, not to be indifferent, you have to act, and you have to react and
yeah,
act.
yeah.
Yeah.
How do you see the future, and what would you hope for personally?
What I hope for is that, of course, this war will end as quickly as possible. Already starting with a ceasefire, and an unconditional ceasefire. That is exactly uh, what everybody would want to see happen, and that such a ceasefire would then lead to a just peace, where we also have this dimension of accountability I spoke of. We cannot let, this crime of aggression, we cannot not let it go unpunished. It will only encourage the same Russian leadership or leaderships elsewhere in other countries. They would say, we can do whatever we want. We can display this type of military aggression, even with some genocidal dimension to it. We can do it without any worry to be held accountable. This is not something that the international community can afford. So, of course, in order to have these things work out in that way, we will need to support Ukraine even more in all ways possible.
Hmm.
military, civilian, also in the judicial front. You know about a special tribunal that is being created. It is quite unique. It is already being created while the crimes committed are still, and this war is still going on. And the Nuremberg trials happened after the war. The tribunal was created afterward. Now we already created tribunal while the war is going on and war crimes are being committed, and the crime of aggression as such is being committed. So at various fronts we have to make it happen that there is no other choice than a just peace. That this is not left to, let's say, to fate or to one particular type of or to a victory for the one that hold out lost and that has most of the resources and that has time on his side. We have to do more in order to make a just peace happen and justice being served. Yeah.
Hmm. And how do you see the future from your perspective?
I don't have the crystal ball. The only logic I see is that the more we or the higher we raise the price of continuing the war for the state aggressor that is Russia, the more quicker we can come to a such a ceasefire and such a process that will lead to a just peace. But what we see happen now is the aggression continues, even in a more violent way. When you look, for example, only at the last attacks to Kiev, but not to speak of the attacks to cities like Kharkiv or Kherson, Zaporizhia, Odessa. I mean, cities closer to the front line. Not to speak of what is happening at the actual front line. But what we see happen is that the aggressor state has no intention to stop this because thinks that this war can be won in the way it wants, and we have to make the aggressor state understand and certainly feel that this path will lead nowhere.
Hmm.
Yeah. It is not an easy answer. It is not a clear prediction of the future. Hard to predict, but there is a logic in that. If the aggressor does not feel that this will lead nowhere from his perspective, he will continue, and that we should not let happen.
Hmm. Yeah, thanks a lot, Luke, for the discussion interview. I'm very happy that we realized it. Thank you for sharing with us also the insights from Ukraine. I personally feel that you share the perspective from their side quite a lot. So we have witnessing you telling us how is it there, the daily life and things like that. And I'm sure that it has something to do also with resilient, being more involved, being more, let's say, open to a critical thinking. Not to read only the highlights or the sound bites, and see more deeply
Mhm.
the things. So thanks for that. I hope you will enjoy the rest of your time in Czech Republic. Wish you the safe journey towards the other places, and thanks for coming and visiting us here.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you for the conversation. Thank you for the very pointed questions, and Yeah, thank you for your interest in let's say the life and experiences of a diplomat. So it for me it was also a good opportunity indeed to reflect on certain issues, and it is certainly very enriching for me to to continue in that vein. So thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity, and thank you for your
Mhm.
hospitality.
Yeah, and thank you, followers, that you watched this episode until the end. Hopefully, I want to say be involved as much as possible,
Yeah, and
and
not indifferent.
yeah,
Yeah.
and believe in the lives that you live, and don't take everything for granted,
Mhm.
as you say.
Yeah.
So thank you for watching, and looking forward to another episode. Bye bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.